and welcome back to the Board Hoovian YouTube channel. And today is, I think it's day 4 of the 14 days of Doctor Who, 10 days to go. And today we are reviewing the Voyage of the Damned. Or is it Voyage of the Damned? I think I forgot which way it is, but I've just watched it, so let's go on with the review. There's not much to say about the pre-titles of this story, because obviously it's a cliffhanger from the ending of Series 3 as the TARDIS crashes into the Titanic, and at the end of Series 3 you're kind of suggested to kind of think it's the actual Titanic, when obviously it's just made up Titanic in space. Do I mention Time Crash? I don't know, I might leave that for I might do another video on Time Crash or something, but obviously that kind of, I guess that's canon that happens in between. One thing I have to say is this is the first episode with the new theme tune, and I love it. It sends me back, because I remember listening to this watching this for the first time and hearing that theme tune for the first time, and I was just like, oh my god, this is cool. It's just such a brilliant theme tune. It just makes you feel so pumped to watch Doctor Who. But anyway, actually going on with the actual story. It does have quite a slow build-up, as it kind of needs to kind of collect all the main cast around naturally, let the Doctor communicate with them, so you understand them and their characters before obviously the disaster begins. So he meets up with Astrid, has a conversation with her about the fact that he's a stowaway, and then she explains how she's always wanted to go to the stars and just explore and everything. And he's on the hunt for a companion, and he's only like, oh, that's good companion material. That's pretty much what's going through his head at that point. Then he bumps into Marvin and Foon, and they have a nice kind of moment together as he helps them out by blowing up the person champagne at the table next to them, who are being rather kind of snobby. But when Marvin and Foon realise that they've got tickets for this Red 67 teleport to Earth, that's a really good way of getting all these characters to meet up in a little group. Obviously, apart from Rixton, who meets up the group later, but you have Banakath Latter meet up with Marvin Foon, Doctor gets Astrid involved, and then Mr. Copper's there, obviously. So suddenly you're getting some of this cast together. And one thing I'd like to mention, when they go to Earth, obviously you have Wilf there, but I'll get on to Wilf. I love Astrid's reaction to being on Earth, because it's just a normal street, and she just says oh, it's beautiful, and it's just that kind of wonder you want from someone going to another planet, because you're just amazed where you are, not what you're looking at, because you don't understand the context for it. Just the fact that you're there is amazing in its own right. She even says it stinks. This is amazing. It's really nice lines there. And one thing as well, she does kind of foreshadow Series 4, because she says, look, no stars in the sky, and I'm like, oh, the star's going out. That is the Series 4 arc. Seeing Wilf, though, obviously he wasn't Wilf at this point, as it was originally intended for Martha's dad to play that role, and then obviously the actor sadly died, and Bernard Cribbins was asked to come in as her grandfather. So at this point he actually wasn't supposed to be, but obviously by the time this episode was released, Series 4 had been filmed, so he'd already done those scenes in Series 4 by the time this episode was released. But originally when this was filmed, it was meant to be a one-off. I really like Russell Tovey in this story. Obviously, he plays Midshipman Frayne, who is later revealed to have the first name Alonzo, as he's a kind of young sailor space sailor, who's on his first trip, which is kind of tragic, because even the captain, who's been paid to cause this disaster, says they promised me an old crew, because he didn't want to kill any of these young boys, but he's had to. And then one thing I will say, his character's a really good character, because it's his first trip out, and he stands up. He's just even just staying with the captain, goes, look, there's supposed to be 2 men, I'm gonna stay here. He's a young boy. I don't know how old the character's supposed to be, but if he's gone through training and everything, I can imagine mid-20s maybe, or a little bit younger. But I love how he stands up to the captain when clearly the shields are down and the asteroids are coming in. And he just goes, look, but the Doctor's right, because they're obviously wheeling the Doctor away, because he's looking and yelling at people, go, look at this. And he just defends him and then gets shot by the captain, sadly, as he decides to stand up against him. And that's really good from him. He's nursing an injury for basically the entire episode and still fighting on, taking charge, despite this being him being a fairly inexperienced character. Also, with Rixton, obviously, where we kind of we see little glimpses of him as he kind of bumps into Astrid at the start, and you see him being some sort of, you see what his character's set up to be. His arc is like his kind of stereotypical character, but what stands out with him is the scene where the Doctor's being like dragged away, and he's yelling at people, going, "Look, check them, check the shields are down." And Rixton actually listens and goes, "Hold on, I'm actually going to listen." And then he realises there's problems, and then starts chasing the rest of them as they're all chasing the Doctors, are wondering what's going on. Which is great, as now suddenly all these characters, which are for the whole episode, are together, dragged away from the main room, where obviously this bloodbath happens as there's a giant flames everywhere, and everyone dies in that room pretty much. But yeah, Rixton does stand up and try and defend the Doctor in this scenario, and then obviously the crash happens, everything's awful. And then Rixton suddenly plays the role he does for the entire rest of the story, which is man who just makes remarks about people who have just died, and being body shaming of the two fat characters, which is a bit bad, but yeah, his character is just there. One thing I will say is there is a fantastic, phenomenal scene. One of the most well-known scenes of this era happens here, where Rixton asks the Doctor who the hell he is, and he has that moment. Just the flare in the background, the spark in the background, the music by Murray Gold is superb. And you've just got, he goes, "I'm the Doctor. I'm from Gallifrey in the constellation Consterberus. I'm the man who's going to save your lives and all 6 billion people on the planet below." I know I've got that wrong. I missed 2 things in there, I'm pretty sure, because the timing was completely wrong. But it's a fantastic scene, a great line. It's well written, and it's brilliantly performed by David Tennant, as he just gives off this massive, confidence in this role. And I love him as the Doctor. He's a fantastic Doctor. We have this repeating gag throughout the story, as Mr. Copper explains that he has a degree in Earthonomics and clearly knows nothing about Earth, and he gets things messed up. And at one point he explains that, I don't understand Christmas. This is traditional Christmas. Christmas is a time of, it's barbaric. And then the Doctor goes, no. Christmas is a time of peace and joy, and then just kind of stops and goes, "Oh, who am I kidding? My Christmas is always like this." And I really like that funny little line. It is quite funny. As it's kind of similar to what Wilf says at the start when you see him at the newspaper stand. He goes, "Look, everyone's left London because Christmas at London, not safe." That's really funny, because the people in the series are noticing a pattern about Christmas at London. Don't go there. But yeah, if we move on a little bit, we have they find a host which they don't yet know is dangerous, and Foon and Marvin are set aside to repair it, because they have experience with robotics. And Foon admits that she actually kind of rang the line to win their competition of billion too many times, as she spent 5,000 credits off the phone bill doing it. And this is a really nice moment, as instead of having a go at her, which you can see a billion couples doing, he just starts Marvin just starts laughing as he goes, "Look, more of an excuse to stay with you for 10 years or 20 years." That is a really nice little moment for them, and it's the only real moment I have with them which makes me want to happy with them. But obviously later on things happen with them, and I don't think they're performed as to the extent they should be. But I'll get on with that. When they when they kind of get into this room where everything's a lot more quiet, they have time to kind of slow down in terms of the characters, and the Doctor has time to talk to Alonso and everything. It is really nice as they find food, and then Astrid comes up to him, and I love this line. She goes, you may be a time king from Gallipoli, but you've still got to eat." And I love that line, because it's just really funny, because she's clearly misheard him, and it's a nice little line. It's harmless, it's fun. But eventually they get through. The Doctor's trying to get to deck 13, I think. Oh no, deck 31. He's trying to get to deck 31. And as they get through, they find this kind of massive, long metal plank, kind of, from one side to the other. And, you know, Rickson obviously instantly makes a joke going, they're not going to get over. And Marvin agrees and then falls on the edge as the kind of banister kind of breaks and he falls down into the engine. It doesn't hit that hard because it's so sudden. Like, you feel like in such a calm situation in terms of the way the dialogue's being performed and the way the music is in the background. And then suddenly, oh, character's dead. Like, it kind of just hits you too quick, to the point where I'm not even reacting emotionally to it. At least that's the way I felt with Marvin's death. So they start walking across the plank, and you can hear banging from the heavenly host on the door, and then eventually it stops. And I love that scene because the Doctor notices it, and instead of just keeping going on, as Rickson says, which is, I think, the sensible option. I'd have done that. The Doctor goes, no. Why would they do it? Because he needs to know why they've stopped it, because he knows that makes no sense. And I really like it when Mr. Copper realises and he goes, look, it's tradition. And he just goes, angels have wings. And they look up and they're flying and they're there and they're, you know, throwing their halos at everyone and trying to chop their heads off. It's just fun. Now, earlier, I didn't mention it, but Banner Flatter reveals to Astrid in the scene that he is a cyborg. And it does feel like, I don't really like that scene, so I don't really mention it too much, but it is actually quite relevant as it comes into play in this scene, as he uses, you know, his battery to save them and kind of basically kills himself and uses up all the remaining energy he has to destroy the Heavenly Host. And the actual kind of core EMP, I think, inside of him can be used again to be used as a weapon. So I don't mind that. That's pretty well done. But then obviously there's one host remaining, and Foon sacrifices herself and ties herself to it and jumps into the engine. Again, I don't feel something to that, because while they're walking, after the death, you see her cry a lot about her husband's death, and then you don't see anything from her for about 3 minutes. She's in that room, you don't hear or see anything from her. She's not in any of the shots, I swear. Not even in the background, because she doesn't go across. And then suddenly she kills herself. And it just, again, I don't really feel too much in that scene. But straight off that, you know, the Doctor, you know, you have a nice panning shot of the Doctor, and he says, almost in like War Doctor fashion, no more. And, you know, he's just sick and tired of losing people. He goes, no, I will keep these people alive. Which is very in character for this Doctor. I love David Tennant's performance. He's just a very heroic Doctor. So the Doctor ends up kind of ditching everyone and kind of giving them all jobs, leading them all. He has a kiss with Astropeth. I don't really like it too much. But then the Doctor gets caught up with Heavenly Host. And I love this because he outsmarts them as he's got rid of 2 questions by accident, has 1 question left before they will start killing him. And he outsmarts them and realises, hold on, I'm not a passenger, therefore I'm not on the list of people you should be killing. I'm a stowaway. You should be keeping me alive. Take me to your leader. And I really like that. That's a really nice scene. But obviously he ends up in Deck 31 and knows there's a superior authority there. But it is revealed to be Max Capricorn, the person who owns the cruise liners, and his ad, and you see his ad throughout the entire episode in different little spots. And I remember watching this as a kid, and I remember it surprising me, and I did find it a little bit funny, his character. One thing I really do like is after explaining his kind of plan to the Doctor, I remember him saying that, look, he's going to get shipped out of the wreckage by friends of his, and then he's going to plan to go to some sort of beach planet. And I love his line. He just goes, where the ladies, so I've heard, are very fond of metal. And just the way he delivers that line, I've always found it a little bit funny. But when the Doctor's saying, you know, you're a loser and everything, and I just love the Tennant's line here, you know, you can't even sink the Titanic, which is just hilarious. However, there's a line off that where Max Capricorn responds by saying, you know, but I can, Doctor. I can cut off the engines from here. I'm like, then why was he complaining 1 minute before this scene that the engines weren't, were still going. I'm like, well, you can turn them off from there. So surely you could have just done that in the first place. Bit of a plot hole. If you think that's not a plot hole, comment why. But I think that's a massive plot hole. But I will paper over the cracks. I think it's a fun episode anyway. So in the meantime, while everyone's doing their little jobs, they get to the main room where they were at the start of the episode, and Astrid finds the teleport little bracelets and tries to get to the Doctor. And then we cut to, so the Doctor's about to be killed. Astrid has taken over some sort of, I don't know, forklift kind of, but mini one, to battle Max Capricorn in his kind of like little wheeler kind of thing. And the thing is, the situation is actually a bit laughable because they're just two little vehicles and they're kind of staring at each other, and she's playing it seriously. Max Capricorn, the actor, is just putting these weird faces, and it's very contradictory. And then it has this slow-mo shot of the Doctor and Astrid staring at each other, and I don't know, I think it's a bit overly dramatic. I think it's a bit overly dramatic for me, personally. Certainly because of the way the guy who performs Max Capricorn does it, as when eventually, inevitably, she dies and drags, or she kind of pushes Max Capricorn off the ledge, and they both fall into the engine. You see kind of, you see her face, she's just kind of wincing, and then he's just there like, ah! And I just can't help but not, I'm not going to cry there. Like, I don't know if you're supposed to cry in that scenario, but yeah, it does kind of not affect me, that scene, at all. And then the Doctor becomes the highest, or member of authority on the ship. So, instantly he gets the Heavenly Host to fly him up to the bridge. And the scene in which they take him up to fly, the music I find really a little bit cringe. And also, when they're flying him up, they just put their arms up midway, and I'm like, I don't know why. I can't explain why. I've always just find that a bit odd, and I've always found it a bit cringy. Just a general personal nitpick which I cannot explain. Yeah. So he ends up on the bridge and obviously bumps into Midshipman Frame and asks him, and he's explaining everything and explaining that, look, we're going to help, sort this out. The engine's been cut off. We're going to save it. We're going to save the Earth. And he just goes, what's your name? And he goes, Alonso. And I just love how the music just instantly stops. And you just cut to Tennant's face. He goes, you're kidding me. And I remember watching this as a kid and just loving this. I was like, oh my God, he found Alonso. Only took you a year and a half to find Alonso, obviously. But I do love that little scene. And then when the ship's crashing, they realise, the Doctor finds out where it's crashing. It's Buckingham Palace. So he gets them to evacuate Buckingham Palace. And I do like it how people know, like, it's just a fact that, like, he knows so many, like, famous people throughout history, including, like, our current Queen. The royal family all know him and everything, and, he knows Winston Churchill and all these people. I love that about about Doctor Who and everything, and the fact that the main character, the Doctor, just does know these people. I find it really fun. But, yeah, when they eventually get the engines working and just about pull away from Buckingham Palace, you get that nice little line from the Queen. You hear someone impersonating the Queen going, thank you, Doctor. And I love it once they're up and the Doctor's kind of wheeling away, having fun with the wheel, and they're all laughing a bit. And the joy in all the characters' faces that they've just survived is really nice. And I do like the line where the Doctor just goes, unsinkable, that's me. He's just having fun. And then quickly realises about Astrid and tries to save her. He realises she had a teleport bracelet, but he can't save her. And it's a sad moment for the Doctor, as he just can't accept the fact that he can't save her, because he just wants to save that extra person, and he can't. And then, of course, her remaining atoms appear as some sort of ghost made out of stardust, and the Doctor kisses her, and I find it to be a bit odd. But when he opens the window and lets her out, I love that moment, because he kind of just... He says to her, God, okay, cut this a little bit. As he says to her, now you can travel forever, which is a really nice line. As she's someone who wanted to explore the universe, and now she can in some way. It's just a bit sad. Then, obviously, when all these characters I think it cuts to later, in the episode. Like you can see like there's been a change in lighting, so obviously the sun's more in the way. But you can see that Rixon's kind of happy. And Rixon says thank you to the Doctor, and it's a nice moment there. He's like, you know what? I never said thank you. I was wrong not to. And then suddenly he just goes, well, I'm rich now. What do you make of that? And it's just like, oh, I don't really think this character was that well written because he's very just one note. But it's followed by a very good line by Mr. Copper as he says, you know, if you could choose anyone to survive, you wouldn't have chosen him. And he goes, but if you could choose who lives and who dies, that would make you a monster. And it's that moment which makes the Doctor realise that he actually can save Mr. Copper. As Mr. Copper knows that if he's caught by authorities, he's going to go to prison for 10 years for fraud. So the Doctor, helps him go to Earth. And it's a really nice ending. It's a really nice ending with Mr. Copper. He's just an old man who just wants to enjoy life. And it's just really nice as the Doctor realises he has £1 million and is probably sorted. And he just says, look, just have a nice life. And it's just a nice ending. This character just is so excited at the possibility of just having a house and a garden. And it's a lovely premise of this character. And I really like his character. And his character, I think, is name dropped in The Stolen Earth as well. But, moving on, it's just a really nice ending. And the music throughout this episode is phenomenal and is reused throughout Series 4. And some of it is used in the adventure games, I noticed as well. Because I just remember listening to it and thinking, I was walking through the city of the Daleks at this point. But anyway, quickly moving on. That is pretty much the episode. And I just got to say, it does end, just before the credits roll, you've got the final shot of the episode, and it just stops, and it shows, rest in peace, Verity Lambert, as she died that in between Series 3 and the Christmas special of 2007, and that is really sad, and it nearly made me tear up a little bit watching it back, because Verity Lambert is a phenomenal woman, and is one of the most important people in the history of Doctor Who, obviously the first producer of the show, and the first female producer of the BBC in general. So yeah, that's a little bit of a sad note, but it's nice, for her to get that credit, and that's still in the episode. It wasn't just a one-time broadcast. It's always, whenever you watch the episode, the Verity Lambert little credit will pop up, and it's sad. But yeah, that is it with Voyage of the Damned. If I could give it a square out of 10. The thing is, I noticed not liking it as much as I thought I would compared to the other two, which is odd. I think I might give this a 6.5, same as Runaway Bride. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. As I do like it overall, I like a lot of the characters, I like the performances, but there's one or two nitpicks too many to give it a 7 or higher. So I would give it a 6.5, yeah. 6.5 feels the right score. But that is me, done for another day. So come back tomorrow for another video from me, as tomorrow I will be reviewing The Next Doctor, featuring David Tennant and David Morrissey, which is kind of the last just one-off Christmas special of the Tennant era, as the one after that is fairly important. Okay, so that is it. Please comment below what you think of the episode, what you thought of my review. Do you disagree? Do you agree with me? What are your overall opinions on the episode? Please comment below. If you like the video, then, like it. Also, if you want to see more stuff like this, please subscribe. I'm doing this for 14 days, so this is day 4. 10 more days after this, which ends, obviously, on Christmas Eve. But, yeah, that's all of that kind of stuff. I've got an Instagram, which is at _board_Whovian, which you can check out. And also, finally, ding the bell for notifications if you want to know when I'm uploading. So, yeah, if you want to be notified, ding the bell. I believe that is it. So yeah, I've been the Bored Whovian, and I'll see you around.